Good afternoon. Again, this is Matt with PacketTrap. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think most of the folks have made it in who were planning on attending. Just a couple housekeeping items. One, we do record these events and we host them on our community for future consumption by prospects and customers. So do me a favor, if there's a lot of background noise, if you're using your computer, mute your mic. If you're using a phone, mute your line, just so we don't get any interruptions or unneeded background noise. We're using WebEx. You can use the chat feature to ask questions. I can't promise you I'll get to those questions during the presentation, but at the end, I always leave time to answer those questions, and I'll try to get to them all. Last but not least, we'll probably spend, I'm going to try a little bit different take on this webinar today. Usually I spend a little bit more time talking about kind of where we came from, where we're going. I can shorten it down a little bit just to get to what most people really want to see, and that's, is PacketTrap PSA a good fit for their company? Still, we're going to go through a couple slides. We'll walk in through PacketTrap, show you the pieces and parts, at least as much as I can within about 25-30 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions. So one of the important things that we like to share in this presentation is really, what are we all about? What drives us? What are our missions? What are our goals? So PacketTrap, now part of Dell. On the development side, I sit here in Colorado with the development team, and we've always kept the goal in mind of keeping it simple, the KISS principle. So keep it simple, stupid, right? And within that, you really can't pitch that to anybody like, hey, we subscribe to the KISS principle. So we had to come up with some overarching goals, principles, motivators, and it sums it up right here. Our goal is to create and publish intuitive, convenient, and immediate software. And to boil that down, what does that mean? When we first launched the company, it was a client-server application, and it really wasn't that intuitive. It certainly wasn't convenient, and it wasn't immediate. I came from the help desk background. I'll tell you a little bit about myself on the next slide, but I would literally sell a software tool to somebody, and they didn't get to push button 1 until 6 months later. So intuitive, what we mean is we've learned over the last 8 years, if end users, people in the field, dispatchers, anybody within the organization finds the tool easy to use, almost enjoyable to use, then you're going to get the data that you want into the system and out of the system in reporting fashion. Convenient, it's got to be easy to get to, right? We leverage SaaS, software as a service. So really, it's just, if you can hit a website, you can log in and literally build your business. And immediate, the old way of delivering software has changed. Now, literally, instead of getting a box of software, loading it on a server, programming it, and doing all the things that you need to do, it's literally immediate. You log in, and you're off to the races. So we always, from a development perspective, we'll push out features, and then we take a short pause and say, do we overcomplicate things? Can we save people clicks? Can we make it more intuitive? And this is what guides us, and this is why we feel we've been successful over the last 7 years with our tool, because it is intuitive, convenient, and immediate. A little bit about myself. This is not me. I do live in Colorado. Been with the company since, early 2000s. Prior to that, I fell into business by mistake. I was a subcontractor for a guy who did low voltage cabling, and I kind of got sick of seeing the checks he was getting and the pay I was getting. So I started a company to do low voltage cabling. After some time, I merged with another company who did data systems, voice and data, PBXs, voicemails, and really made every mistake in the book. My partner ended up being very not engaged in the business. I took the whole brunt of the responsibilities and made every mistake in the book many times. I realized after about 6 years that was not where I needed to be. I left the partnership, went to work for a large enterprise software company, learned a ton of great things about frameworks and processes and best practices there, but again, really didn't feel like a great fit at that time for me to be in a huge company. So I came to this little startup, PacketTrap, and actually the meeting happened across the street from where I sit today. The CEO at the time brought in a laptop, had a couple beers, cracked it open, showed me this tool, PacketTrap, that I'm going to show you today, and I was absolutely amazed. I was amazed, one, because my business had a lot of problems, and I may relate some things to my business and some of the mistakes I made. It was just incredible, and I said, what are you doing? Are you tunneling through the VPN, or how are you getting this little tool? He goes, no, it's just right here on my laptop through the Wi-Fi. So it jumped on board, and have been here ever since. So the reason I tell you about me is, one, why should you listen to? I've been around for a while. I know the tool pretty well, and I think I was the best person for the job, and nobody else wanted to do it. So here I am talking to you. Second, I've been through a lot of the struggles that people go through in running a business. Now, obviously, I didn't succeed, or I wouldn't be talking to you today. What I relate that to is Einstein saying, hey, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity, and I was truly insane. But over the last 7 years, I've talked to thousands upon thousands of small businesses, medium businesses, and learned a lot from them. So hopefully, as we walk through today's demo, hopefully you get a chuckle, you'll learn a best practice, or at a minimum, you take away a better understanding of if PacketTrap is a good fit for your organization or not. So without further ado, we will open up PacketTrap. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing PacketTrap now. If you're not, then you've got problems. But we've landed on the dashboard tab. And before we go into the tabs and the feature functionality, I really want to go over to the settings and talk through some of the most frequently asked questions that we get from prospects like yourselves. The first biggest question is users. What kind of users do you have, and how do they work? So we have two types of users that would be staff or subcontractors, and they can either log in or they don't. If they don't log in, they're still a user, and we named that a no login user. The third type of user we have is a portal user. The portal user is a customer that you give access to your system to so they can see the work that you're doing on their behalf. I want to go back to the users, talk a little bit more about them. So a standard user is anybody that logs into the system and manipulates data, or even views data. A no login user, the best example I've been able to come up with is, let's say you do business locally for a large company and they end up picking up another business out in Fargo, North Dakota. Small satellite office, couple guys, couple gals, probably not a lot of service activity going to happen there. Well, you're certainly not going to fly and fix if something happens there. So what you do, what most people do, and you go look at your friendly competitors and you ask, hey, can you do the work up there for me if something goes bad? So you bring that person on, you tell your customer you can support the satellite office, and a ticket needs to be created because there's a problem. So they come to you, they open the ticket, and you'll use that subcontractor in this example as a no login user. They can still be alerted, they can be scheduled, you can add notes, labor, material, expenses on their behalf, but they don't log into the system. You don't want them to log into the system. You just want to know what they're doing when they're doing it. So that would be a good example of a no login user. Now within the standard role, or user type, we have these roles. So roles really, it equates to what are their permissions. The tech, lead tech, and subcontractor role are governed by these permissions. This laundry list of permissions allows you to do one thing. Actually multiple things. It really allows you to define how people interact with your system. And we've done that in an effort to, again, keep it simple. If we all have technicians of people that go out in the field, they're really wanting to do their job, go home to their family, get paid, and hopefully put some money in your bank as well as make your customer happy. And so instead of just overwhelming them with stuff, the permissions allows us to fine-tune that, so we just remove the noise and it makes their experience easier, as well as protects you from some of the data that you may not want them to have access to. Okay, so that's in essence the three user types. You've got a standard user, that's what you basically pay for. The no login, at this point in time, they're unlimited, included for free with your subscription. And we've got the customer users. Again, unlimited, free, included with a subscription. All right, so let's pop back over to, I guess, the next part. Let's talk about how people request service from your company. There's a number of different ways that we can handle that. So from the help desk space, the help desk being kind of in the days that I worked with the help desk, kind of a burden or just a complete cost center, right? A black hole of money that has been cut and cut and cut. At least the spending's been cut. And the goal there was to push everybody to self-service. Now, the service space is a little bit different than that because we want that personal touch with customers, but we still have to figure out how we manage this interaction. So within PacketTrap, we've got a couple tools that'll help you do that. So one, I want to point out just our email Dropbox. Now, we give you a default address for this Dropbox as well as you can create your own custom address. But the real functionality and feature set behind the Dropbox is imagine tonight, Valentine's Day, you're enjoying a nice dinner, and you get an email from your customer that says, hey, Matt, do me a favor. Can you take a look at this in the morning? Something just isn't right. Well, you could use this Dropbox address as a contact within your phone and just hit quick forward, boom. The email comes in, creates a ticket. Somebody, if not yourself, will take action on that either tonight or in the morning when it's appropriate. The second example might be your email, a support inbox. So you forward your support inbox to this email Dropbox as your customer's email for support. Those emails are carried over into PacketTrap, and we create tickets and can then process them that way. The next, I've seen some customers who will go out and create a very elaborate website, and they put a contact form or a request for service form out there, and they make it very detailed, and at the end when they hit submit, it wraps it up in an email and sticks it into the Dropbox. So that's how PacketTrap will help you minimize some of the inbox email that you get that you have to copy and paste and put in Excel or whatever you have to do. We want to bring all those communications into a central place. Now, there's another piece of this email settings that we'll talk about a little bit later. And that's our two-way end-to-end email integration. So the next is the portal. And again, the goal in the help desk space has always been to push people to a portal to report incidents and whatnot. Here, PacketTrap offers up the portal. Your customers can log in. They can go to the new ticket tab, indicate what the issue is. Do you need help with iPhone? They can further detail it. If we want to expose our priority and type, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit, you can. And they can link this to an item or a piece of equipment if you'd like them to. So again, going back to the help desk space, we called this, if you look at the metrics, industry metrics, anytime somebody phones you, you're spending about $25. The average phone call to the support desk is $25, and this was 7-8 years ago. So again, if you're able to push some of your customers and frame it as better customer service and this portal that you get to come in and see all the work we're doing, and hopefully deflect some of those phone calls in. I know it's hard to put numbers to, but if you ever want to just scratch down on a pad of paper, how many phone calls are coming in for new tickets? How many phone calls are coming in to say, hey, when's Tech going to show up? That's what we call a status check call. If you can defer some of those calls out to the portal, it's self-service, you can expect to save yourself at a minimum about $25 per interaction. Okay, so let's go back to PacketTrap. Just kind of showed you opening a ticket through a portal. We talked through opening a ticket through email. The next, I'll spend very little time on, but the integration with our RMM tool or our remote maintenance and monitoring tool. If you're using that tool or thinking about using that tool, as errors are found within the customer's network or in the devices that you're monitoring, they'll actually flag, come into PacketTrap PSA, and be sitting there for a ticket for one of your techs to take action on. As soon as the action is taken, the ticket is closed, we can go back into the RMM tool and reset the alert on the device that spun off the alert originally. So that's another type of integration or communication that we can deal with. Last but not least is the good old phone. So we've got our customers tab here, and if you think about just your business, the phone rings and you want to jump on and find out who it is and how you can help them. And so in this part, I relate just a little bit about my past. I was crazy, trying to conquer the world, running this business, and I needed somebody to help. So I found this gal who just graduated from Denver University, had a master's degree in business. I thought, wow, she'll own my business here in 6 months, and she's looking for a job. So I brought her in, hoping that she could help me manage the business. After a couple weeks, I had to stop because I would come back to the office at 3 o'clock, and I would have a stack of notes, sticky Post-its all over my monitor and desk to call back customers. And they were really basic requests. And after a couple of weeks, I finally took Lisa, was her name, to lunch. And I said, Lisa, help me understand this. You're 3 times as educated as I am. What's going on? Why have we been reduced to yellow stickies on my monitor? She goes, well, you haven't given me the tools. Where do you want me to go? I'm not going to go in the warehouse, dirty, dark, cold warehouse, and dig through that fireproof file cabinet that I don't have the keys for. You haven't given me access to your accounting software. So really, I've been reduced to that. And so I realized at that point in time, man, I didn't give her any tools. So first of all, what we can do is bring all of your customers into one central place that everybody that you want to have access has access to. And what does that do for you? Well, in this case, Lisa could have simply, the phone rings, finds our customer in question. In this case, it's Allstate Insurance. We can see we've landed at the customer profile. And now Lisa, in this case, instead of just taking a Post-it note for me, could now be armed with the information of this customer to be able to help them, hopefully. So the phone rings, we find our customer, pull up the customer, we've landed on the overview. The overview is going to show us the most recent and pertinent information for this customer. Now I've got my resolution cranked up a little bit so it's a better view for you. So you can see our service history poked out there a little bit, but in the real world, since you wouldn't see it pushing out that way. But anyway, so Lisa can see quickly what's the service history for this customer. Are there any comments that she should know of? Does this customer have a contract, which they do? Any notes for the contact? Who's the original salesperson? Who's the tech that we like to send out there? Is there a service manager involved that we need to let know that something's going on over there? How do we bill these folks? And last but not least, how do we notify these people? So again, going back to my situation, Lisa, instead of the Post-it note, could have jumped into the customer, landed on the overview, and been armed, ready to help this person. We also track multiple contacts for a customer, multiple locations, ongoing comments, any on-prem equipment. So this is going to be, for example, in simple terms, a TV. We support this customer, and one of the pieces of equipment that we support on their behalf is a TV. She could click in, she could find when do we service it, is it under warranty, when does the warranty expires. I've got here custom fields that I've added. And we can also see the service history. So let's say that Mayhem, in this case, was calling in and said, you came out and you worked on my TV a couple weeks ago and there's still a problem. She could dig into this ticket. She lands on the overview of the ticket, and now she's armed, ready to help with any questions. Okay, going back to the customer, contracts. Here's a contract, for example, that this customer has with us. It was a block of hours. If we dig into that contract and the customer had questions on that, we could say, hey, we sold you 5 hours. You exceeded it by an hour, and you owe us an hour of work, right? Would you like to renew that contract? Attachments might be an example of, in my world, we like to have a drawing, a floor plan, with phone extensions and the numbering of each data and voice cable for each office. So that was something that we always were referring to. So we'd send a tech out and they had a problem, let's say, with a telephone, and they'd call and say, hey, where's extension 201 at this big office building? Well, we'd jump into our floor plans, we'd tell them, here it is. The attachments, that example, you could have a nice Visio, you could upload it or whatever format you'd like. We'll upload it here, and now your customers, not your customers, your techs, or your customers could potentially have access to that as well if you wanted them to. But your techs, again, Lisa, the office manager, all the people in your office that log in have access to that. History, this is going to be all the history for this customer, right? You can sort and search it and find any tickets that you've opened for this customer since they've been doing business with you. Next is the reports. These are customer-centric reports. So another quick example. Got a phone call once from one of my customers. It was a car dealership. He says, every time I look out my window, I see your service van out here, Matt. I feel like if you have nothing better to do, you just send a tech to my place to burn labor hours. And I feel like all I'm doing is financing a Hawaiian vacation home for you. Well, to be honest with you, that was very far from the truth. So what I would have to do is go talk to my accountant and get together all the invoices and put them in a yellow folder and set a time to go meet with him and sit down. And 9 times out of 10, he was calling me to say that because he owed me money. And after we walked through the 20, 30, or 40 requests that he had opened and hadn't paid for, I'd walk out of there with about $2,000 short. Maybe I'd have a check, but it just wasn't a very good experience. And partly that experience was bad because we didn't have very good documentation. But here, instead of going into QuickBooks and trying to figure out how to run all the reports and have not very detailed information, I could go right into my PSA account, run a service billing by month, print it, and head out to the customer site. Better yet, hey, Jeff, in this case, go log into the portal, look at the work that we've done for you, and if you have questions or concerns on any individual request, write down the number, write down what you think is wrong with it, and I'd be happy to come address those invoices with you. Okay, so back to kind of how do we open tickets? So customer calls, go to the customer, we can use the quick jump keys, we can do a search, and eventually pull up our customer. Under the actions, just go new ticket. We're ready to take a ticket. Take the information from the customer and get this out to a technician. Another way to do that would be to hover over the Tickets tab, or if you click into the Tickets tab, you'll see the big New Ticket button. Here, we don't know who the customer is, right? So now we got to pick what customer's calling. So next would be our calendar. So here's our calendar. I'll tell you a little bit about the calendar before we move forward, but we're looking at a week view. And we also have a day, a month view, and an availability grid that I'll show you when we actually create a ticket. But here I can see my text, and you can see I've filtered down to the group of texts. So we can look at a group, you can look at all users, a group of users, and we can look at team or individual. So in the example, if I have an install to do, and I want Ted to do that install, I might want to look at his month and find 3 or 4 days that he's available. Again, keep in mind my resolution is cranked up pretty high. So here, the first time I can get him for 3 or 4 days in a row would be the 19th of this month. Okay, we can also book right from the calendar here. If we wanted to create a ticket, we put in the details, create the event. Okay, so if we're sitting on a customer and we open a new ticket from here, really what we want to do is take the description. What's wrong? We simply type that in here. We pick the customer location, because as I said earlier, we track multiple contacts, multiple locations. We're going to pick the corporate headquarters, and we're going out to see Andy. On the right here, we've got the type and priority. So the type is basically like a category, and the priority, you get to pick from one of 4 priorities. Now, the type field, you can have as many values here as you'd like. Both these fields can be removed from the service request or the ticket, as well as there's some other optional fields that we have that you can deploy out to the actual ticket. Another example of a customizable optional built-in field is a detailed description. So some people like to keep it really, really simple. Turn all these fields off. Call comes in. We type out what's wrong in the description. Next, we just save and assign it. If it's more detailed, you can put in the type, priority, description, drop down, link this to actually a piece of equipment. Let's say that this is a keyboard that's causing the problem. Here's an example of a custom field that I've added just for demo purposes. Now we decide on this individual ticket, what are we going to do? Is it billable? Is it not billable? Does it go against the contract? Who are we going to bill? So we have really flexible billing, but we also have a default that, let's say, you use 99.9% of the time. This default should be billable to the customer's default address. So I'm going to work you through kind of I'm going to walk you through a workflow. Now, I do want you to keep in mind this is not a workflow that you have got to adhere to. It's very flexible. I've got groups where 3 or 4 guys will get together in a partnership. They're all equal partners. They're consultants. They go out and meet with clients all day. They update their tickets and they close them, and they're ready for billing. In this example, we're going to walk through as if Lisa, our office manager, is going to dispatch the call. We'll send it out to Ted. Ted's the technician. He'll update the ticket out on site. It comes back. The owner's going to pop in, Matt. He's going to take a look at it, review the ticket, and then send it off to billing. Okay? So I just don't want you to think that this is something that you have to conform to. But in this case, again, Lisa, our office manager, she's taking the information from our customer, and now she wants to find a technician that's available to help. So she's going to assign this ticket, and we're going to create a scheduled assignment. So we have unscheduled assignments, kind of like a to-do. Like, hey, Matt, I want you to go to the warehouse and pick this up. And we have scheduled assignments like, hey, Matt, I want you to meet with the customer at this point in time. So we're going to make it scheduled because we typically need to roll a truck in this example. And I've defaulted it to the same day as by default, it's the same day as the calendar of today. You can move that 2 days, 3 days, 4 days ahead. And my appointment times are defaulted to 3 hours, so from 8 to 11. Now, if I had a default tech, it would pop in here just like this. So it would automatically be populated. I could view this technician's schedule. Expand this out for you. And find a time and a day that works with the customer as well as our technician. Now, if I just want to find the next available or the first available, I might want to go to our availability grid. Our availability grid, let's go ahead and expand this out. It has some options. So going back to those groups we talked about, when setting up, we really didn't talk about them, but they're within the user settings. Here they come into play again. We see our management as well as our text or no filter. We just want to look at text. Maybe the customer says, that's not that big of a deal. Maybe we want to look at the next 5 days. And then filter our time from 6 to 6, which are our business hours. I'll apply my options, and I might find that I want to send Ted today at 3:30, or Sean in this case. Maybe it's an emergency, and I need to look at, hey, just show me today from 3:30 on. Pop in 3, apply the options, and now I can say, as your customer, I can get Sean out there immediately to help you out. Okay, so let's just filter this back down to 8. So in this case, let's go ahead and book this for Ted at 12 o'clock. So we pick the time, put the user in. I have the chance to put any comments in for Ted right here. These will be sent to him by email and text. And click Save. So a few things now happen behind the scenes. One, I'm going to keep my customer in the know by sending them an alert if you'd like to. It says, hey, we created a ticket for you. Ticket 1333, what's wrong? We can also send the customer an email that says we've assigned this call. We assigned it to Ted. He'll be there at 12 o'clock. We can email and or text Ted. You've got a new call on the calendar. So he may be in the belly of some billing, and all of a sudden, bing, a text comes by. Oh, look, they just threw something on my calendar for today. He could also get an email they've been assigned to the call, and he'll get the ticket details. Next, with the workflow that we've got, we've automatically changed this call to assigned. So it was new, now it's assigned. And as far as Lisa is concerned, unless she hears back from Ted or she hears back from the customer, she can go on and help other people. Okay, so let's take a deep breath and pop in as Ted and go ahead and move this ticket along. I'm going to log into a little iPad device. We're going to be looking at our mobile edition. So every user has the ability to use the mobile edition, which looks a little bit different than what we've been looking at, as well as the desktop edition. Now, on the iPads and the tablets that are coming out, we've got the real estate to run really the regular desktop edition on the tablet. And that's suggested. If you've got the real estate, go ahead and use it. But for the phones and some of the smaller devices, the mobile really takes advantage of the real estate that we have available to us on the screen and serves things up in a much easier fashion. So here's my little iPad. I can see what my day looks like today. And here's the ticket that we just scheduled for Ted. In addition, I see as Ted that I have 4 tickets assigned to me today that are incomplete. Now, I guess I said that wrong. I've got 4 tickets that are assigned to me that are incomplete. So what does that tell me right away? I've got 3 tickets that are assigned to me for today. That means there's 1 out there that I haven't updated. I have access to recently viewed customers and tickets, so I can jump right in if I've been working on a ticket, as well as my schedule. So if I just went out and did labor, all I need to do is click this little checkbox. Now this is completing an assignment. This is pretty much what the whole assignment model within PacketTrap is based on. I can add a comment, just hit save, or if I'm tracking labor, I can click here and track the labor as well as change my status if I want to. If this ticket's a little bit more complex and takes more than labor, I can actually go into the ticket. I can see here the ticket. I can see the customer I need to go help. I can click right into the customer. I can see the address. I can view the map of where this customer is. Actually, I'll just drill into that. as well as, depending on if I've got GPS enabled in my device, I can get driving directions to this site. If I'm running late, running early, I can click to dial Andy or our contact, as well as I can email him straight away from the ticket. I get some more information, such as what piece of equipment am I working on, who's the service manager, account manager, as well as here's some custom fields. So if we went out and used labor, material, and expenses, you just could pop over to the action. We're going to add a part. Just say it's a, now we just say it's a monitor. Here we can add any comments, make them public, which this means your customer will have access to them through the portal, as well as this will port over to, if you're using QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online, to the invoice within QuickBooks. Let's do a quick save. Then you can add an expense. This is just an example of 17 miles. Again, I can add these comments. They'll port over to the ticket as well as the invoice. And now I might want to complete my assignment, add my labor. Let me go ahead and change the status to work complete. Now with the workflow, we can actually say the last assignment, when the last assignment is completed on a ticket, automatically change the status to work complete. But here I'm going to change the status, indicate how long I was on site for, what's the labor rate, and I can put, again, any comments. And this is big. I know in my business, a lot of the techs would bring back their paperwork and we couldn't even understand what they wrote. And certainly when you hand that to a non-technical person like our accountant, she says, I don't know what even to put into the invoice. And so here's what I like to call like the meat within the nut. Like this is really, these guys are the eyes and the ears, the boots on the street. We want to know what you did before you leave the site. So here they put in the comments, make that public so we can pass that over to the invoice. Now one note on this, if you leave this comment as private, the only thing that's not going to go over to the QuickBooks or whatever accounting system you're using is going to be that comment. The whole item is going to go, it's just the comment that we decide, is it visible to the customer or not. So click save, our tech gets a little feedback, attaboy, green check mark, you're done. But maybe I'm not done. Maybe I want to go over and add a comment, add an expense. I can add an attachment, I can browse out, we'll pick a file, and upload it. Before or after picture. Now if I'm using a device or let's say an iPhone, when I go to browse, it's going to initiate the camera. So do you want to pull from the gallery or the camera? So we can get a before and after picture of this. I might want to hand this to my client, show them the work that we just did. This customer, we used the monitor, drove 17 miles, and I spent 3.20 hours here. Can I get your John Hancock, please? Present this to the client, a quick initial or whatever the case may be. And now from there, I can email this to my customer, or maybe I'll just wait for the office to follow up with them. So at that point, I'm done. I can just go back to the dashboard and see what's next. I can see I should head out to this call for Allstate. All right, so now let's take a deep breath and get out of our tech mode. Let's jump in as, in my little fictitious example, as the owner. And what I want to do is get paid. And what I want to do is I want to get paid quicker. Again, going back to mistakes that I made, we had receivables way past 120 days out. And the reason we had those so far out there is for a couple reasons. One, I dispatch a tech. We were so reactive. We thought we were saving the world, but apparently we weren't doing a very good job of it. But the tech would go out, hopefully fill out his paperwork at some point in time during that appointment. If not, he would do it at night. And then hopefully the paper would come back and get into my office the next day. But it never did. So we ended up billing 7, 8 days after the service was done. The notes were very cryptic and very short. They were then handed to our accountant, who tried to make heads and tails out of the notes, create a one-line invoice, fix something with an amount, $500, and send it to our customer through snail mail. So we're about 15 days out before we even deal with our net 30 terms. So our money was, if they paid on time, we were getting our money in 45 days. So one of the processes that I think a lot of folks are looking for is to get paid faster. And that's me logging in as an owner. I can see my tickets by status. I can see I've got 9 tickets out there that are in status of work complete. Now, in the permissions, you can say, can text close calls, yes, no. If you say no, then they can just change status. And what we want to do is have them change status out to work complete if the job's done. That tells everybody in the company it's ready to go to billing. So I'm going to drill into this ticket. I can see from the overview quite a lot of information. I can see the equipment we serviced. I can see the log entries, the last 3 of them, and I can see the last 3 labor materials and expense items. I can look specifically at just the items to make sure it's right, like what date was it added, what was our description, who did it, and what's the billing status. I can toggle to my billing. I can see that the ticket is billable. It has not been billed. Here are the 3 items. Here's the total price to my customer. And here's an anomaly, right? Why are we giving this monitor away for free, right? Maybe I wanted to catch that, edit it. You know, monitors are $120. They cost us $60. All right, so we added that item. Let's look at our billing again. All right, that looks a little bit better. We see our margin, 57%. Not bad. We made $264. Hey, looking good. I see there's some attachments. What are they? Well, here's the before picture that Ted took out in the field, and also the signed entry form that was captured by Andy Smith at this date and time. Last but not least, is our log. Now, this is pretty much everything that happened cradle to grave since this ticket was created. Now, I mentioned the end-to-end email tool that we have. So as these alerts are sent out to customers as well as contacts, meaning technicians, they can be responded to, as well as we can send additional information or comments out to the customer and or the tech. So here I could send a public comment, which is going to go to the tech as well as the customer, and or send a private comment out to, for example, the tech. So here I added a quick comment, please call in. What will happen is this will be sent out as an email to Ted. Ted can respond, and that response comes right back into the email and notifies us that, hey, there's another private comment in there, so we can go see what Ted said. As well as the customer, if they're alerted and say, hey, we have this scheduled for tomorrow, and they reply saying, no, don't come tomorrow. I was wrong. Please come the day after. So that email response comes back in. It alerts anybody that's assigned to the ticket, and we can take action on it. I don't give that feature enough time just because we don't have a lot of time, but it's a really powerful foundation to keep all the emails back and forth from your customer to and your text within the tool. Now, if this all looks right to you, what you want to do is change the status to closed. Once you change the status to closed, it flips over into our billing tab. And what we're looking at is the billing dashboard. Now, this is showing us all of our tickets that are in a status of ready to be billed. Really, the query is show me all the tickets where the customer owes me more than $0 and they have not been exported. And so we see we've got 25 that are ready to go to billing. I want to create a new billing batch. We'll just take this 1333 for an example. I set my invoice date as today. That'll work. Save the batch and simply transfer it to, in this case, QuickBooks Online. Now, QuickBooks Desktop is a little bit different. What you want to do is download the QuickBooks import tool. Once you've done that, you would actually export this batch and then import it using the QuickBooks import tool, and all the invoices will be ported over into QuickBooks. So the last step of the process is going to be QuickBooks. That's a report. So if we go to create invoices, let's look at some invoices. So here's an example of an invoice and us porting some information over. Now this is has a little bit to be desired here, but the conversation says, QuickBooks, I need some invoice numbers. So QuickBooks will send over some invoice numbers. We then port over the invoice date that we had on our billing batch. They said, say QuickBooks, we've got customer BB. Now, typically we'll have an address and a little bit more information. I'll show you one that has one. But here's our customer BB. Do you have this customer QuickBooks? If yes, great. Create an invoice. Here's the invoice date with that invoice number you gave me, and here's the customer. Next, we send over the ship to. So here we can see that the service location is Walmart, but we're going to bill BB. If we don't have the customer, if I didn't already mention this, we'll create it within QuickBooks. If we have a PO, the PO will be populated, and the next line item is our ticket number and the problem. So here it says ticket 1281, it's not cooling. We then send over the items, the date the items were added to PacketTrap, the item name, the quantity, and the description. So we can see our desktop monitor here, that's our description, and then these are our tech notes, a new belt for the motor. Here's our expenses, and here's the actual labor. The description is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and here are the tech notes. This is what I did to get the customer back up and running, and here's our detailed description. Sam called and said the blue light's not on anymore. We total it up, add taxes, make a memo back to the ticket that created this invoice, and it's flagged to be printed. So next, what I would do is go to print batch. We'll see all of our tickets here, and we can just hit print, and we should expect those to be on the printer. Or if you decided for them to be emailed, you do send batch. Send batch, and boom, 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 out they go in an email. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk a little bit through our reports. This is real simple. We've got lots of canned reports. Remember, we've got the customer-centric reports as well as global reports. These are the global reports. We've got a lot of canned reports, as well as this section here are all of the custom reports that I've built just throughout demos and webinars. Okay, so that's a pretty good stopping time. I'm going to go ahead and see if there are any questions. If you have questions now, feel free to send them in. This takes me just a second. Okay, so the first question I have is, what is the difference in price between the mobile user and the regular login? Good question. So each user gets the ability to log in either with the mobile or the regular login. So we don't charge differently for that add-on, it's included. And the follow-up question the same user had is how much for the QuickBooks integration. So that is, again, included with your subscription. There's no extra cost for the QuickBooks piece. The next question had to do with the billing again. If you don't have QuickBooks, what do you do? Good question. So within the billing tab, and when we create that new batch, there's some options. And I'll tell you a couple of different ways to do this. One, if we look at our batch options, we've got QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks, and Simple XML. So if you're using a tool or accounting tool that allows you to import Simple XML, that's how you would want to integrate it with Simple XML right from the billing tab. Other ways to integrate, you can create custom reports, and all the custom reports are exportable in Excel. You can export those reports and then import them into your accounting system. And you can use our API. We get into our API here and dig into this a little bit. You can use the API to actually integrate with another tool. There are also third-party developers who will integrate cloud applications. Itdoesit.com is one of them, and they will, like FreshBooks, for example, they've written integrations for FreshBooks between PacketTrap and FreshBooks. Okay, there's a question that somebody uses QuickBooks Online through their payroll company. Can we still use that? I can't say for certain yes, but I would assume that if you use an instance of your own QuickBooks Online, all you need to do is set up the connection ticket between the two systems, and those invoices should go, or the tickets should go right into QuickBooks and create invoices. So question, how does this tie into PacketTrap RMM? We addressed that a little bit in the beginning on a couple places where we touched on the RMM side. So the customers, we can share the customers and the equipment. So I believe I have a customer in here with some of that data. So let me go ahead and see if I can find it. So here's our San Diego office. Looks like a San Francisco. So this is our San Francisco office. This is an example of a customer that was brought in from the RMM tool from PacketTrap MSP. We brought in the customer as well as all the equipment that's on the network that I chose to bring in. And what will happen basically is once we've got our customers in here, as alerts go off in the RMM, tickets are created within PacketTrap PSA. Those tickets will alert people. As you work on those tickets and eventually close them, they'll go back to the RMM and turn the flag off. Once you integrate the two between the customers, as more devices are found, or at least you deploy more agents to those devices, the equipment will fall into PacketTrap PSA. So really the main points are we create tickets through the RMM. We can turn, using the callbacks, do a number of different things with the RMM tool, but if there's an alert, we can turn the alert off by closing the ticket, as well as we can port over the equipment that's found in the network to PacketTrap PSA. A couple more questions. 1 second. I'm just trying to read this tiny little print. Okay, so just to clarify, the price is per user, and it's per login user. And each login user has access to either the mobile edition, well, let me rephrase that, has access to both this desktop edition as well as the mobile. So if you're a user and a login user, you have access to either one. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I know we spent on a little bit longer than I anticipated. I hope you found some use in today's presentation. Really what the next question typically is where do we go from here? First thing you can do, if you haven't signed up for a trial, you can go to PacketTrap.com and sign up for a free trial. Test it out, see if it works for you. Next, you can send an email to sales@PacketTrap.com if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help you. And once you start that trial, you'll probably be contacted by one of our territory managers, see if you have any questions. You can also use our community as a resource. So if you go to PacketTrap.com, go over to Products PSA or Resources PSA Community, that'll pull up the community. There's a lot of videos that I've done. I keep adding them all the time, as well as there's questions and answers from other customers. There's a lot of information on the community, so you can go there for additional resources as well. Appreciate y'all staying on with me. Again, we went a little bit over today, but I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to working with you.